On Instagram or
On YouTube.
YouTube?
Yeah. You search Oakland Borough.
Thank you.
Can I have everyone's attention, please? If everyone can take their seat, be ready to start. I would like to welcome everyone to Oakland Fire Department's first annual September 11th Remembrance service. As we start our ceremony today, I'm happy to ask our Boy Scouts and our Girl Scouts if they would come forward and help lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If we could all stand for the pledge. And Scouts, if you come up front here. Ready? Okay, let's lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Scouts. Sit down. At this time, I would like to ask Caitlin Valari to come forward and sing the national anthem. Why don't we stand for the national anthem?
Stars spangled banner.
Thank you, Caitlin. Real trooper, even when the track backed out. Thank you.
I got scared.
I'd like to take a moment to recognize our fire department officers today. First, I'd like to introduce our department chief, Chief Vincent Guys, our assistant chief of Company 1, Donald Johnston, assistant chief of Company 2, Vincent Incorbaya, captain of Company 1, Cesar Arredondo, captain of Company 2, Christopher Hoitzma, lieutenant of Company 1, Sean Torpy, and lieutenant of Company 2, Daniel DeRisi. I want to thank you for being here. They certainly deserve that round of applause for all the work that they do on behalf of this fire department and this community. At this time, I'd like to introduce our council president, Steve Solani, if he would come forward and introduce the council people that are here today.
As I promised, this won't be more than a minute or two. I want to, first of all, acknowledge Councilmember Kevin Szynski. Also acknowledge Councilperson Pat Pignatelli. Also member of the and Councilman Eric Kamala. Also members say one real quick word. It's great to see everyone here supporting the community and remembering what happened on 9/11. I have a senior high school daughter who never understood what the firefighters, the policemen, first responders did to the community. I would say to all the young people here, please remind your children what happened that day and what it was like if everyone was supporting each other to make everything the right way. Thank you very much.
I am the Reverend Russ Stammer. I'm chaplain of the Oakland Fire Department. And on behalf of the department, I want to thank all of you for joining us this afternoon. At this time, I also would like to thank the Oakland Police Department for their attendance here today, and we thank them for their service to our community, and also the Oakland First Aid Squad. And I want to recognize Matthew Goodrich, Deputy Chief, and Michelle Konturkiewicz, our Secretary. And again, if you've ever been a recipient of their services, you know how hard they do work. So I want to thank them. Nice meeting you. Thank you. I also want to mention I call them our angels for the fire department, and that's our Oakland Fire Department Ladies Auxiliary. You may not see them there, but they are always active behind the scenes. When you go in later for some refreshments, they've been busy getting that all together this morning. So I want to thank them for being here and their participation today. Before we go any further, I want to take a few minutes here to thank our fire department members and those businesses in town that donated money to make this moving display that's out front. I sure hope you looked at it when you came in. That they made that thing possible. Right there in the lawn are 343 American flags. That represents the 343 firefighters and paramedics that gave their lives on that fateful day. And if you notice that there's a design that's out there, it looks just like the Twin Towers. They really did a nice job on that. Unfortunately, the 343 flags doesn't tell the whole story. Because in the 22 years since 9/11, we have lost many other first responders to illnesses that they got from working on that fire down at Ground Zero. So we need to remember that even though that event happened 22 years ago, to this day, we are still losing people to those attacks. At this time, I'd like to ask Pat Patelli if he would play Going Home. Tomorrow is the 22nd anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. And as in years past, families of those who were senselessly killed on that terrible day will gather at the 9/11 Memorial in New York City in commemoration of their loved ones. On this solemn day, it's our sacred obligation for each of us to remember those who were killed, recognize all who survived, and honor the sacrifices of the first responders and recovery workers. And those sacrifices are still happening. And to recapture the unity, that spirit of unity, that spirit of service that arose in those immediate days after the attacks. Once again in New York, the tribute light will once again illuminate the New York City skyline. It will illuminate that skyline as a symbol of our endurance and a powerful reminder of the strength we found on 9/11. That day, a total of 2,996 people were killed in those attacks. At the World Trade Center, there was 2,763. And that they died after the two planes slammed into the Twin Towers. That figure includes the 343 firefighters and paramedics, 23 New York City police officers, 37 Port Authority police officers who were struggling to complete an evacuation of the buildings and to save as many office workers that were trapped on those higher floors. That number also includes one from our own community, Thomas McGinnis, who was lost on that day. But it wasn't just New York. At the Pentagon, 189 people were killed, including 64 who were on that American Airlines Flight 77 when that airline struck that building. And it goes on. Flight 93, 44 people died when that plane crash landed in Pennsylvania in an attempt to stop another attack in Washington. Since 2001, many more people have died of 9/11 related illnesses than have died on that fateful day. Like I said, this is still happening even today. I want to share a little bit from my own reflections. Now, while I was not there the day of 9/11, I was asked to go there about a month later. there was a memorial service for the victims' families. It was being held in Liberty State Park. Myself and another chaplain were teamed up together, and there was about 8 sets of chaplains in this room. All afternoon, on that Sunday afternoon, we had 2 minutes to visit with victims' families. They were escorted in by state troopers. They were brought into one of the cubicles. We were presenting urns of soil to these victims' families, many of whom would never have anything to bury. This was an effort to give them closure. It was an effort to help them in the healing process. Now, I can tell you that was a very emotionally draining day. One of my weaknesses is children, seeing little kids. I am thankful I did not get any little kids in my cubicle that day. But I did hear them in the cubicles next to me, where they came in and they said, "Is that mommy in there? Is that daddy in there?" What do you say to somebody who's lost a loved one and you have 2 minutes to give them comfort? Well, we made it through that afternoon. We finished up, and as we were getting ready to head home, a Port Authority police officer comes to us and says, "We need you down at Ground Zero. We'll give you a police escort in, and we want you to engage the rescue workers." I was in my dress blue uniform, not something you want to be crawling around Ground Zero in. But we went. We spent the entire night at Ground Zero. I tell you, to this day, I will never forget the sights, the sounds, the smells of what we experienced at Ground Zero. I can remember walking around, and when you're a firefighter and you're in a building that is burning and things are coming down, you look and you know what that was or what that was. But yeah, we walked around Ground Zero and there was nothing recognizable. There was dust everywhere. You know, there were office buildings. You'd expect to see phones or parts of it. There was nothing. There were times that they would pull out turnout gear from a firefighter, and there was nothing inside. I will never forget those sights or those sounds. I remember coming out the next morning and going into one of the recovery centers for the workers. And I remember calling my wife. I said, "We are out. We're in a recovery center." And I said to her, "I wish you could have seen what I saw. But then I am so glad we did not see what I saw." The things I experienced while I was there is things that will go with me for the rest of my life. I will never forget those experiences. I'll never forget the people that we talked to at Ground Zero. I'll never forget those rescue workers that we engaged with. I will never forget the public on the streets as we were going in and out and how they were acting. And I'm sorry to say that we've lost a lot of that today. There's a whole generation of people here now that were not alive on 9/11. They don't know what it was all about. So I have made it my personal goal is to keep 9/11 alive. Keep it alive so that we remember the sacrifices that were made, and the sacrifices that are still going to this day. People have experienced all sorts of illnesses, cancers, breathing issues. I'm one of them. I've had those issues. And that's from being down at ground zero. So our goal today as a fire department was to bring this to our community. Bring this so that you realize that it wasn't just a one-day event. This is an event that is going on day after day after day, even 22 years later, and it's going to go on for quite a bit longer. So I ask you, one, to please keep in your prayers the people that are struggling with these illnesses from 9/11. Pray for those first responders that still have post-traumatic stress because of that day. I'll tell you myself, I have not gone to the 9/11 memorial. I don't know if I can. So many things are burned in my mind that it would be a very hard thing for me to go and see that. But it's important that we all remember. And while that's 22 years in the past and we're still losing people for it, it is important for us today to also remember these men and women that are on our fire department, our first aid squad, our police department, that just like that day, they put their lives on the line every day to protect this community and to serve our community. And I always like to ask people when they do hear a siren, just pray for those responders, because they don't always know what they're walking into. At this time, I'd like to ask Caitlin if she would come again and sing God Bless America. talked about 9/11, we talked about what's happened in the past. But how do we go forward? How do we remember 9/11? Well, tomorrow, September 11th, is set aside as a National Day of Service and Remembrance. The September 11th National Day of Service and Remembrance is the culmination of efforts originally launched in 2002 by the nonprofit 9/11 Day, with wide support by the 9/11 community and leading national service organizations. This effort first established the inspired tradition of engaging in charitable service on 9/11 as an annual and forward-looking tribute to the 9/11 victims, survivors, and those who rose up in response to the attacks. Now, I personally want to challenge you and encourage you to get involved and volunteer in your community. I am sure your elected officials, and the mayor's here, thanks for coming. I'm sure your elected officials will be happy to help you find an area to get involved in. I can tell you from personal experience, your fire department, your first aid squad can always use volunteers. I joined 25 years ago, and it was the best decision of my life to join this fire department. So it is great to get involved. I encourage you to do that. Talk to them. Talk to the first aid squad, the fire department, the mayor, and find out about the opportunities that are there. And as we enter this autumn season, and then we go into the holiday season, why not consider making 2024 a year of volunteer service? Volunteering can be exciting, fulfilling. You can learn some new skills, make some new friends, and give back to the community that we all call home. Will you join me as we pray? Good and gracious God, today we come before you with heavy hearts as we remember the events of 9/11. For some of us today, it is a bag of mixed emotions. We hurt deeply for those who lost their lives and those who lost loved ones. We mourn the nearly 3,000 who died that day. We're humbled by the bravery of your first responders. We continue to grieve with our neighbors in the loss of our national innocence and our false sense of constant safety. As we think of the way New York City and D.C. responded with churches, synagogues, and temples opening their doors to all people, as we remember strangers carrying each other out of buildings, as we are reminded of how those who had much shared with those who had lost, and as we recall the bravery of the passengers and the crew of United Flight 93, our pride wells up in us. The headlines following 9/11 read, "Today, we are all Americans." And we remember the immediate call to war and the more than 1.5 million deaths from it. God of all people, teach us to be patriotic, but humbly so. Teach us to see the frailty, the beauty, and the value of life in light of this tragedy, rather than using it to elevate trivial differences to the heights of divisive reasons for hatred. Remind us of the response of the American people and the true heart of this nation's people as it was revealed in open doors, open arms, and open hearts. May we never forget that on that day, we did not focus on nationality, political party, wealth, or education. We focused on need, on humanity, on love. Call us back to that place in our hearts. Instill in us the deepest sense of call to be that people once again. We remember all those, even today, that still suffer from this loss and still deal with health issues. May we as a country continue to heal and help each other, just as we did that day. Amen. At this time, I'll ask Pat Pignatelli to play Amazing Grace. I thank you for coming to our ceremony today, and this concludes our ceremony. I hope that you will join us in the other room, right through this door, and go through into our meeting room and enjoy some refreshments with us. And while you're at it, take a moment and thank the police officers, the first aid squad members, the fire department people that are here, for the work that they continue to do day to day for our communities. Thank you for coming.